Welcome back to the Itsy Game series. This is tutorial 6. We're going to create our test assets for Itsy. So today our objectives are going to be to create a testing skeletal mesh for Itsy. We're not going to be doing any animations or anything fancy. We're just making something that can represent, which direction he's facing, and just kind of give us a feel for how he's going to look. None of this is, production level at all. So, it doesn't have to be fancy. Um, I could have gotten away with something much simpler, just doing like a sphere or something, or a box or anything really. But I wanted something that, when my daughter play tests it, she'll be able to see, oh, that's a spider, and then she'll get into it. So that's why I went with this. And then we also need to make a testing mesh for our pipe, for our actual water spout, that we're going to be climbing up, and then a couple of meshes for our platforms. So if you're really familiar with Blender and you um, don't feel like you want to watch the video, all you're going to end up needing is a an SK mesh for your main character. Like I said, just for reference purposes at this point, doesn't have to be production ready. Don't spend a million hours trying to get it just right. And then a couple of like boxes or something that we can jump onto for platforms. You're going to want more than one, because later on we're going to be using data tables for storing that information, and you're going to want more than one to be able to test it to make it work. For those of you that aren't that terribly familiar with Blender, I'm going to be walking through everything step by step, so it's kind of a long video. I do apologize. I've had kind of a rough week, so I feel like this tutorial has been a little bit more stammery, but all the information's there, and I do go through everything step by step. I look forward to showing you what I've got, and let's get this rolling. All right, here we are in Blender. I'm going to walk through making my testing assets. So obviously this is a new blend file. We don't need a camera. We don't need a light. I'm going to go ahead and keep this cube. It should be a 1 meter cube. I'll just delete it. I'll make a new 1 meter cube just to be sure. Mesh, cube, 1 meter. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so I want the 1 meter cube just as a size reference. So that's what I'm doing that for. Okay, and I'm going to Shift S and then cursor to selected. That'll select this face right here. And then object, set origin to 3D cursor. And then cursor to world origin and selection to cursor. Okay, that'll get my square sitting here on the floor. All right, so now I got that. Now the next thing I want is I kind of want another reference for as I'm doing the Itsy testing model. Like I said, it's not a production model. It's just to give me a reference as I'm making the game, kind of see how it's going to feel without actually putting a lot of work to it. So this doesn't need to be that complicated. I'm just going to bump it down to 16 by 8 for its segments and rings, just something real easy. And then I can go down here to, let's see here, objects. I want rendering or visibility. No. Viewport display. That's the one I'm looking for. And I'm going to display that as a wire frame. So this kind of represents what we're going to have for our collision mesh on the actual object. So then I can, as I'm making it, I can just kind of try to keep it within this circle. So selection, cursor to selected, set is origin. So that way it's sitting on the floor. Cursor to world origin, selection to cursor. So when we do make our character, this rough shape will be the capsule for it. So roughly like this, it'll be. We're gonna end up with like a circle, or not a circle, but a sphere. So I'm gonna try to keep within this 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 box here. Okay, so I'm going to add a couple of meshes here. We're going to add a UV sphere. And then this one I do want at 32 and 16 because I'd like it to have a little more than the example reference. So I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees. And I'm going to go ahead and scale that down. That seems about right. Maybe a little bigger. Yeah, I think that'll work. Before I mess with it, I'm going to go ahead and just apply the transforms. So that way that scaling stays. Move it up, put it about where we're going to have our body within the collision capsule. So I want the body to be kind of like right about there. All right. And then I'm going to want to make like, the back half of the body segments. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this, Shift D. Oop, that's the wrong object to D. There we go. Shift D on the sphere. And then we'll move it over here. And then take my two spheres and I'm going to join those two spheres. And I'm going to get rid of these fans here because I'm going to actually end up connecting the two spheres with that. Okay, got the first one, the second one, and then I can bridge those, bridge edge loops. Okay, I'm going to turn on my X-ray so I can see all the way through them. And look at them from the side. That's here, one. Oh, there we go. Okay. Select box. And then I want the vertices. And then I can bring this back in a bit like that. So that way it's like closer. Because like the front and the back segment are real close together on a spider. That. Turn off my X-ray. Actually, turn it back on because I'm gonna mess with this back segment, just kind of make it look a little nicer. So grab this half of it and then O for proportional editing, and then I can bring that out. We'll say about here, just a little bit past, and then scale it down. That is the back half of my spider. And I can turn off that. All right. So now I got my body pretty much laid out. And then I can set my origin to the 3D cursor. So that way it's right there. And I'm going to end up using the 3 vector stuff. So I need some vector colors in here. And it's easy to do this as we go rather than do it after we put everything together. It's just easier to do it this way. So select everything in edit mode, go to vertex paint, and then RGB, 0 and 0, and then Shift K. We'll just go ahead and paint the whole thing that solid color, and go back into object mode. Now I want to be able to see that, what I'm working on, so I just go over here to my viewport shading, and then vertex. Huzzah. Okay, now I'm going to grab and make some eyeballs for him. So add mesh, UV sphere, scale that down. And then while I'm here, select everything, and we're going to do the vertex paint for this as well. And this one I'm going to do green. Shift K. Okay. Then I'm going to jockey the eyeballs around where I want them to go. So spider's got 2 eyes on each side, so that's what we're doing here. Or at least jumping spider has 2 eyes on each side. I'm not sure about other spiders. I'm not that familiar. there. Duplicate that again. So if you're really new to Blender, I know I'm probably moving a little fast. You know, I am not a Blender expert. I'm proficient, but not an expert. So I would suggest like going to like Blender Guru. He's got a lot of really great stuff. You can go make your donuts and, you know, learn. I kind of feel like that's um, like a rite of passage is making your donuts. So those of you who have made your donuts already, you're probably giggling because you have made donuts as well. So, but he's got some really great stuff. So this is less a Blender tutorial and, you know, just showing you what I'm doing here. All right, so I got my eyeballs about where I want them. None of this is final. It's just, you know, what we're working on. All right. And then the next thing I want is some legs. So easy way to do the legs for this is create a plane. Go into edit mode with that. Select all. Select cursor or selected to cursor. And that will collapse all four of those points down into a single spot. And then clean up, merge by distance, and then you'll see down here I lost my extra vertices, so I just have one vertice there. Go to you know, my select mode vertices, and then extrude Z. Okay. And then I'm going to go ahead and move this guy over. He is about where I'm going to want him to be. So the legs will be on the body, the main body over here. The, you know, the beginning, nice and in the middle. And then I can move these around. And one will get me right where I want to be. I can move these again right about there for that first joint, and then E to extrude on the X, and then kind of move this around to where I want it to be. Extrude Z. So right about there, I'm thinking. So I may end up having to shrink the whole thing down a bit, but I'll make sure that foot is sitting on the ground. Okay, so now if you've never used the skin modifier, it's pretty nice. So I go down to my modifiers and I go to skin. And it doesn't look like much now, but if I add a subdivision surface modifier on there, I'll make it a little rounder. And then making sure that I have all of these vertices selected, Control A will allow me to scale those vertices down so I can make this more appropriate size. Sorry about there. Make sure that that's inside the mesh where I want it. Yep, there we go. All right. And I think that's probably pretty good. Like I said, you know, none of this is final. So I'm going to go ahead and apply these modifiers so that way I can add my colors. Select all, vertex paint, 0, and 1. And then that's my blue. I should be able to hit Shift K, and now my leg is blue. I go back to object mode. All right, and then we're going to duplicate this leg. Shift duplicate. I'll move it over a little bit and grab both of them, line them up the way I want them, and then add 2 more legs. Shift duplicate. Shift duplicate. Rotate this on the Z axis, and then make sure it's in the body there. Rotate this one just a little bit. Rotate this one just a little bit. Rotate this one. Get the legs right inside. take a look at it, make sure I got it the way I want it, and that everything's good to go. Make sure my legs are roughly touching the floor. Looks like they're not, so I can take them all. Object mode. Take them all. And one to get that front face. Should be able to just kind of push them down just a little bit. Right about there, it looks good. Now that I got all that squared away, I'm going to take each of the body parts, make sure I have them selected. So like the body, the legs, and the eyeballs. And I'm just going to go ahead and join them into one. Now at this point, I don't need this anymore, this reference sphere that I was making, so I'm going to get rid of that. Okay. And then I've got half of my body modeled, so I just need to get the other half, and I can do that with a mirror modifier. So if I go to X-ray, select all of that, and make sure I've got vertices selected. Use my box select to go ahead and come in here as close as I can. XV, and then I should have just gotten one half of it. Let's see here. Yep, I don't have any extra artifacts or pieces left over, so I did good on that. And I can add a mirror modifier. Oop, no, I need to apply all transforms first. So here, apply all transforms, and then there we go. We'll fix it. So the reason it was overlapping was the actual model, its axis would have been over a bit. So mirroring it like I did, or applying the transforms would put that new X value back to center the way it's supposed to be. So I got my clipping. I want that on there, so that way it'll like weld these two pieces together. And then I can go ahead and apply that. And then now I have a little spider. Give it some smooth shading, so it's nice and nice and pretty. So, or as pretty as it's gonna be. I mean, like I said, this isn't a fancy piece. Okay, so I've got that. I need UVs, so I go to UV editing, just select all. And since this isn't something that is going to end up in the final game, I'm just going to do kind of a sloppy, smart UV and just let it, automate it for me. And then that'll work just fine for what we're doing. So, and then the last couple of things we need to do is, so in the final game object, so not this mesh, but the final mesh that'll look pretty and be the one that we're going to use in game, is going to be a skeletal mesh. It's going to have a skeleton, an armature, and it's going to have animations and whatnots. So our testing one, even though we're not planning to animate this little guy, he needs at least one bone, and he needs to be a skeletal mesh. So to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to add an armature, and then we're going to parent him to the parent him to the armature. Yeah, that's the way I was trying to say it. So we go add and then armature, and then that's going to give us a bone. So that's his root bone there for us. Now, attaching the skeleton or the mesh to that skeleton is a little wonky in Blender. I've always found it a little cumbersome, but you got to follow the steps in order to kind of get it right. So you're going to select the armature, which is this little fiddly widget here. Go into edit mode on this, select which part of the bone or which bone you want it to be parented to. And then while that's selected, go back out into object mode. And then you're going to select the mesh, and then you're going to select the armature. And then you should be able to hit Control P to parent. And at this point, if you see this right here, you did it in the right order, this bone, because that's what we're doing right here. So parent to bone. So, and then now this has got a armature and he's parented, or the parenting is set right. So I can go into pose mode to check this, and I should, we'll go into object mode, select that, and then go into pose mode, and then we should be able to rotate him, but where's my rotation? Where's my rotate? missing a rotator. Pose mode. Huh. I am not sure why I did. Here we go, rotate. That's the one. I didn't have my rotate selected. So now if I rotate this, yep. So my mesh should go with it. And ooh, we forgot a leg. So I've got one leg that's not attached. So, okay, object, join. Okay, there we go. Object, shade smooth. Okay, now I should be able to get everything to go together. So go to pose mode, and then go ahead and rotate. Yep. So he's going to rotate with that bone. Good deal. It does mean I got to redo those UVs because that extra leg will then be overlapping in spots. So should be able to hit. No, I don't want to be a pose mode. Object, a select all, UV, smart UV project, and export or apply. Okay, so now we're good. Itsy is good, so we're gonna go ahead and name that. So the mesh here, we're gonna name that SK Itsy, and then the armature we're gonna have to SK Itsy skeleton. Okay, and then we're good there. So then we're done with Itsy. Itsy is squared away. Now we need a couple more things before we get going here with the rest of the setup. We need some testing meshes. So we need the pipe for the water spout that we're going to be climbing up, and we need a couple of objects to actually jump on. And then I'd also like one for the water spout, even though it's not going to be anything special. It'll just get the naming kind of locked in and the place of where that object's going to be. So I don't need Itsy, so I'm going to go ahead and hide him. And then I'm going to add another cube, mesh cube. Okay. And then its size, I'm going to make it really big. So we're going to go 50 meters. Okay. So now I got a big old cube. Okay. And then we're going to do the same thing here. I want this to be able to sit on the ground. It'll make it easier for when we're adding these, because it'll be like, okay, now go up 50 meters, add a new one, go up 50 meters, add a new one, and down, same thing. So that's what we will do. So grab that bottom face, cursor to selected, object, set origin to 3D cursor, put your cursor back at the world origin, selection to cursor, and then that moves that up to the top. Okay, so we've got this basic shape here. Now we're going to change a few things on it. We're going to get rid of the top and the bottom faces, and then that just gives us this box. Okay, now at this point, I'm going to I'll tell you about the what we're doing here. So if you go to your viewpoint settings, and then you turn on your normals, you can see your normals. Now this is super huge, so like I'll scale those up a bit so we can see them. So these are the normals. Okay, so these blue lines are facing out towards like what would be rendered. So like if I'm looking at it from this direction, these two faces are going to be rendered. Now the inside faces won't be rendered. It says those are culled. We don't need to worry about though. We don't see those because it's inside the object. It doesn't need to be rendered. So for our case, we want to actually be opposite of that, because if you can picture that this is our working environment here, I'll make Itsy visible again so we can see her. So there's Itsy right there, like down inside this box, right? Now, this is our viewport. Sorry. Actually, that feels a bit small, to be perfectly honest with you. Itsy up like this. So like this is going to be like roughly what our camera will see. So yeah, Itsy looks a bit small for this. So I think maybe like this box needs to be smaller. Or Itsy needs to be bigger. I might just make Itsy bigger. Let's see here. I'm gonna make the box smaller. So let's see here. So that's 50. Scale it by, let's say 0.5, 5, 5. All right, that should make that 25 meters instead of 50. Okay, now that looks a little bit better. Yeah, we're gonna stick with that. So what I was trying to say is, yeah, like that. Turn off those normals. Okay, so I can go to this box, and I'm gonna take this front face right here. I'm gonna hide it real quick, so that way I can show you what I'm talking about. So this will make more sense. Okay, so essentially, when we're playing the game and we're looking at Itsy, we want the face to be here, but we don't want to have to see it. So if we're on the back side of it and it has no collision, we'll just be able to see right through it. So as we rotate the camera around on the inside of this box, it'll work out the way we want it to. And I guess that probably didn't come out very well, but it will make an awful lot more sense as we set this up in the game in Unreal. So I think I'm just going to keep rolling with this, and I apologize if I've stuttered one too many times for you today. So to make this work, what we do want to do is we want to flip the normals. So I'll turn those back on so you can see them. So I go to Mesh, Normals, Flip. Okay, so now these faces are going to be the ones that are going to render. Okay, or those sides of the faces. And then we're going to name this SM_pipe. All right, and then that'll work for that. And then I can hide that because I don't really need to see that right now. And go back to Itsy just so I can zoom in. And then I can actually take this cube and I can, work with this. I can modify this a little bit. So selection to cursor. And then I'm going to duplicate it because I'm going to make a second one as well. So these are just to represent like things we can, jump on, right? I want at least 2 of them. If you want to spend some extra time, making this, fancier or whatever, that's fine. I mean, it's your world. You do as you please. But I'm picturing this as like, like, I don't know, like a stick or something. So, maybe I'll bevel these edges a little bit. Control V, just to give it a little bit of flair there. Right now I'm just working on getting a rough shape in there. Everything beyond that's just, for later, But I do want, and I would highly suggest you make at least 2 of these. Cursor selected, object set origin to 3D cursor. So reason being is what I'm going to end up doing is in order to pick which items get dropped and that we can jump on as far as falling platforms and whatnots, that's going to be in a data table. And since I'm going to be working with a data table, I want something in it for testing. So you're going to want at least 2 things in there so that way you can pick between the 2 of them and you get some, random things popping out. So that's what I'm going to do. And those normals are too big. There we go. All right, and then so I got that one. It's kind of like a, I don't know, like a stick or something. So, and then move this one out a bit. Okay. I mean, maybe this will end up being a leaf. I don't know. Let's see, or maybe a scale XY. There you go. Yeah, that's like a leaf. Sure, why not? Alrighty, and then for this one, I want to set its origin to the middle, cursor to selected, object set origin to 3D cursor. Okay, so now I have a leaf, I guess. All right, so I'm going to name these. I'm just going to name them SM_plat 1 and 2. for platform or whatnots. And then this one, I'll name the same, do the same thing, SM_plat. Actually, I should have, to name that plat02, or to keep the naming conventions correct. Okay, so I've got those two set. Selection to cursor. No, cursor world origin. Selection to cursor. Okay, section to, actually, we need UVs for these as well. So, editing, so A, UV, smart UV unwrap, boom, done. Same thing for this one. UV editing, select all in edit mode, UV smart unwrap. All right, and then alt hide will bring our box back out. And then we can do the same thing with this, A, UV, smart UV, unwrap. All right. Now we've got some objects. Okay, so now that we have all of these things, now we need to export them, right? So I'm gonna start with the pipe because it's huge and it takes up so much space on my screen. So I go to File, Export, FBX, and then I go to where I'm gonna put it. So it's gonna be my tutorials, Itsy, assets, yeah. So I already did this once. Actually, I've done it like 3 times because my mic died. So, so I've already saved them once, and I'll just overwrite what I already did. So as far as settings go, okay, here's some important things here. You want limit to selected objects. You want armature and mesh. Scale is 1. Negative Y forward, Z up. Okay, make sure this right here, this apply transform, is not checked. If that's checked, it's going to really mess it up for your Itsy because he's got a skeleton. It'll make him very unhappy. All right, and then armature should be X and negative Y, if I remember correctly, and you don't want this add leaf bones. I think that's a horrible option. I hate it. So once you got that set, just go ahead and export that, and then hide that one. Go to our next thing. And then same thing, export, FBX, that was platform 2. So export, FBX, platform 1, export. Then I can hide these, so that way I don't accidentally grab them. Okay, and then I believe we still had, do we have the armature hidden? Nope, the armature is not hidden. Okay, good. Good. So then I'm going to select both Itsy and the armature. And then I'm going to export FBX to Itsy. And then that's going to export out to those files. All right, now at this point, I'm going to pause the video, and then I'm going to load up Unreal, and we'll import these in, and then you'll be able to see what the idea is. Okay, I have one little caveat here. When I was importing Itsy, he ended up being off, like he was shifted. So we're going to re-export this with different settings. So export FBX, and then to fix that, just go ahead and restore to defaults. And then we're only going to change it. We'll change a few things. We're going to go ahead and leave the rest of this all the same. It should be, yeah, let me make sure I do this right. Default. Okay, so now go ahead and leave all of this the same. Go ahead and change your smoothing to edge, and that should get us there. So, and selected items. So export, and then we'll come into Unreal again. We'll give her one more go here, see if we can pick this up correctly. So click skeletal mesh, and then we don't want our materials. All right, so import that, and then there we go. Now Itsy is correct. I think there used to be other changes that we had to do back in Unreal 4, and Unreal 5 is closer, I think. I have to do some more looking that up myself. So, hey, it's a learning process for everybody. So anyway, so I've got Itsy in now, and I can bring Itsy up here so you can see it. So here's the Itsy mesh. And it did load in with Itsy being a little higher. Like I said, I need to look into the export settings a little better, see what's changed, because see, this is just odd. But for what we're doing now, I'll make sure when we get to the more finalized assets that I have some better information to give. So take everything with a grain of salt. Like I said, I am learning as much as everyone else. So I moved Itsy down just a little bit, and then here's a skeletal mesh. So should be good. We'll be able to jockey it around. Okay, so we have Itsy. I want to give him some colors. So we're going to go ahead and we go down to our plugin content here and then go to materials. And then we're going to take our master RGB. Go ahead and copy that. And then I'm going to bring that into my dev folder for now. Actually, I'll put it in the materials folder. Okay. And then I can just leave that name there. That's fine. But I'm going to create an instance of this. And then I'm going to call it Itsy test. Actually, it's MI, then Itsy test for material instance. Okay, and then Itsy over here so I can see Itsy. And where scene. I'm on the mesh, yeah. Yeah, I'm on the mesh. Here it is. So we're gonna go ahead and my content drawer, materials, Itsy test, put that in there. And then I want to change the colors a little bit for Itsy. I don't want them to be those RGB colors. So change this and this and this. So I'll start with the body. Let's give them kind of a, let's see here, maybe a brownish color. This is just for funsies, Then give the legs another color here. And this is with that 3-color vertex that we were working on before. So to see that in action. So I'm going to make this black, make his eyes black. And then we're going to go ahead and bump the roughness down an awful lot. Yeah. And then I think I might actually change the roughness on the body maybe just to see if that will look a little better. He's a little shinier. I don't think that matters all that much. Okay. So this, like I said, this will give me something that'll look interesting that my daughter can be like, oh, look, it's a spider. Yay. So there we go. Now we have a mesh that we can use for testing for Itsy. Like I said, it's rough, but it's going to work for what we're trying to do, which is just basically to tell which direction our character is facing and give a rough idea for size. So we've got all that in place. And then the next thing we can do is we can bring in the rest of our little assets. Actually, I think I am going to move Itsy over into characters because that's where Itsy needs to go. That's going to be his home. Then I'm going to go ahead and bring in my pipe. And then this is, just make sure, do not create materials import. Okay. And then now you can see the inside of our pipe. So, oh, good. Thought for a second I forgot to hit record. It's been that kind of week, to be perfectly honest with you. So now you can see what I was trying to say about the faces. So I'm looking at this, I can see the inside of what's going to be our play space. Now if I rotate the camera, now I'm seeing this side. So it works perfectly the way we wanted it to do. All right, so then we just need to give it a material, and we'll just give it a one of our grid box materials for now. And then let's see here, collections. That's what I want. Box, and give this just like a a regular gray there. Make it a little darker. Yeah, there we go. I like that. That'll work for now. I might go back in and add my grid box material for testing. We'll see if that's what I end up doing or not. Okay, and so the next thing we need is our two platforms. Same thing, just go ahead and import them. Okay, and same thing, we're just gonna give them a material. So I want to go down here, my gray box. I'm gonna make this like a lighter color, I think. And that should do it for that. Okay, and then I'm gonna bring in, oh, no, I already brought in my other platform. So just gonna do the same thing with the grid box, gray box material here. Huzzah. And then one more thing we want to do with the pipe is, so like right now, it has collision on it. So like, where is it? I should be able to show collision. Yeah, simple collision. So right now, it automatically generated this box, this collision box. Now we don't want that at all because that's going to mess up like pretty much everything. We won't be able to put stuff inside it. We're going to use, I think we'll end up using blocking volumes for the edges rather than this is collision. So we're going to go ahead and remove collision and then save that. So now that'll work the way we want it to. Okay, so now we've got those three things. So we can go to our test map and we can add our pipe. Okay, now because, where am I looking at here? Okay, there we go. And we'll drop that down. Okay, so because this floor, it represents like roughly, like the water, right? So I think I'm just gonna go ahead and add the blue color to that, and maybe later we can change the color to make it something a little easier on the eyes. But that'll represent water, and we can then change that later. We can actually probably scale it down, but none of that really matters for right this particular second. So like if I hit play, okay. So I think we'll have to fidget with lighting to get it to look right, but that'll be okay. So got that, and then to get an idea of how things look, one thing we can do is we can create a blueprint. We're going to take a blueprint and a character and test char. Okay. So this won't be our final character at all. We're actually going to make ours in C++, but it'll essentially come from the same place. So I can use this as like a reference to get some of the numbers I need. So like, Itsy's really big here. So we can kind of set this up and then we'll be able to see it just fine. All right, so I'm going to have to rotate Itsy on the Z axis. I want to go front perspective. Rotate him 90 degrees. Back to front. And then I can move Itsy down. Although we're going to need to change this capsule here. So let's see, here's the capsule. Let's make it 100 by 100 maybe. So that'd make it like, 1 meter by 1 meter. Yeah, okay. And then we can get Itsy to touch the ground right there. And then that seems roughly right. I have to fidget with it later, or maybe we'll just turn the capsule into a smaller area. But basically, the bottom of this capsule, it's going to be touching the floor, so like we want that way. Yeah, that'll work. So basically, here's our Itsy, or what our Itsy will look like, and then we've got our numbers, and we can adjust things on this Itsy. All right. So, and then to see what it looks like, put Itsy down in the game. And there is Itsy. And we can add a couple of blocks. Just to, like I said, I'm just laying this out, just seeing how this looks so I can get a feel for it. Assets. And assets. All right. Now we got a couple of things in here. So the next thing that we'll be working on is getting creating the basic movements for Itsy, getting Itsy to move around, and that should be a pretty easy tutorial. Hopefully this wasn't too confusing for anybody. I know, like I said, I did a lot of stammering on this one, but like I said, these are just test messages, so we have something to work with and be able to visualize what the plan is. So, again, thanks for watching. Hopefully, I'll see you again soon. If you have any questions, drop them down in the comments, and I will talk to you next time.